In the last video we looked at how we deal with collectible objects, specifically the gems that I've got on the screen. You can see I've got a red and a blue gem, and when I collide with those gems, it adds points to my score. So if I just demonstrate that, so when I run in the gem, you can see that it adds 50 to my score at the top. Alright, so what we're going to do this tutorial is we're going to work with the lives. So currently if I collide with an enemy, it returns me back to the start, but I don't lose any lives. So that's what we're going to look at in this video. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's close this down and start having a look at what's going on. So you can see, firstly, I've got 3 monsters. You may only have 1 monster in your game at the moment, and depending on how many monsters you've got, it will depend on how many times you have to repeat what I'm going to show you. So we're going to use a collision event, which actually we've already set up, because obviously when we collide with any of the monsters in our game or any of the enemies in our game, it returns us back to the start. So we've already set up a collision event. So if I open up my player object, you can see here that I've got a collision event set up for my 3 different monsters. So I'm going to show you how we go about reducing the number of lives by 1 when we collide with a monster. So let's have a look at the horizontal monster. So when I collide with a monster, currently it destroys the instance of self, okay, which is it destroys my playable character, and then it creates the instance again in my OBJ player at the X and the Y start positions. That's where I currently place my playable character before the game starts. So it returns me to the start of my maze. So I want to add underneath here is a way of reducing the number of lives, and it's quite straightforward. It pretty much mirrors what we did in the last video. So we want to apply what we're going to do to a different object. So we've got our OBJ controller GUI, which deals with all our lives and our scores and our health. So we're going to apply it to that the same way as we did in the last video when we looked at collectible objects. So I want to apply to. Now the apply to is already in my recently used, but to get to it, just click apply. Okay, and you can see as I started to type in apply, there it appears. So I'm just simply going to click and drag and drop it underneath my create instance. Now importantly, don't forget we have to specify what object we want to apply the code to. So we're going to drop the little arrow down there, so apply to a different instance, and we're going to select objects, and I'm going to select my OBJ controller GUI. Okay, so now when I drop the list, you can see that it's applied to my OBJ controller GUI. And what I'm going to do then is to set the lives to -1 relative. What that means is it's going to deduct 1 from the 3 lives that we currently got. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to type in set lives. There you are, there's the set lives. So I'm going to click and I'm going to drag, and don't forget you need to drag it onto the right hand side of this object. If you drag and drop it and it looks like that, okay, with the arm coming off here, that's wrong, it's not going to work. So let's get rid of that. If I click and drag it here, okay, that will work, but just to be safe, click, drag, drop it on the side, so you know that it's going to give you this this curved line rather than the straight line on the other side. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set the lives to -1 and make sure that it's set to relative. I can do the same for my other 2 monsters. So I'm going to close this one down. I'm going to open up my random moving monster. I've still got my apply to here, so I can just simply use it from my previous my recently used. I'm going to set my lives again onto the side, relative -1. Okay, and then finally my last monster, my vertical monster, I'm going to drag down my apply to, and then I'm going to click on my lives, and I'm going to set my lives relative -1. Okay. Right, so let's see how that works. So I'm going to press play. Okay, so now when I hit one of the monsters, my lives should be reduced by 1. So let's see how that works. So let's try the horizontal monster. Yeah, that's reduced my lives by 1. Okay, let's try the random moving monster. See what happens there. Yeah, oh, that's reduced my lives by more than 1. Okay, so there's something going on there. So let's restart the game again. Just double check that that wasn't just a glitch. Okay, where's my random moving monster? There it is. Yeah, so what that did, that hit me twice as I died, so so that's fine, so that's working as it should. And then lastly, the vertical monsters. Right, so I've coded in a problem, and I hope you can see that when I collide with the vertical monster, it's not reducing any lives. So this is a bit of debugging, okay, so you're doing this for a reason. So this needs to be documented in your development log, to show that there's a bit of an issue in the fact that it's only reducing the lives on the horizontal and the randomly moving objects, monsters, depending on what you've got in your game, of course. So I'm going to close this down and we're going to do a little bit of investigation. So let's go back to my horizontal monster. So when we created this piece of code, this is actually taking the lives off my OBJ controller GUI, which is where my lives are stored. That's what keeps a track of my lives, and it's taking it off as relative. My random moving object, that's still taking -1 off, that's fine as relative, and it's applying to the OBJ controller GUI, which is correct. My vertical monster is taking 1 off my lives as a relative, that's right, but this is only looking at the playable object, and that's not where the lives are stored. The lives are stored on the OBJ controller GUI, so that's the problem. So this is what you would have to document. So if I set that to OBJ controller GUI, okay, you can see now that that is correct. So let's run the game again, just to be sure, and let's collide with a horizontal monster, and now that takes lives off. Okay, so we've now got a working live system. What we haven't got is a way to stop the game, but we'll look at that in a later video. I am just going to show you very quickly in the next video how to use the health bar.